what would you say to what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about bringing on board their first labourer, staff member, or something like that?
Yeah, well, if you're taking on an apprentice, I think the key question is to ask to them is, what's your background? What are your hobbies? They're key, because then you can get to know what type of person they are just from them two questions. Also, how practically have you ever picked a screwdriver up? Are you into bikes? Have you changed a tyre? A lot of stuff that involves practicality, because if that person's already a practical person that's already involved in a sport or something like that, that's a really good thing. Now, if you take someone on, not saying this is a bad thing, we've took lads on that couldn't even pick up a spanner, but the best ones, in my opinion, seem to be lads that come from or girls that come from a practical background. But you definitely do need to make sure, because it's changed the industry, you need to make sure that you've got academic there as well. Now, we've had lads that have really struggled with the academic side, but really good lads. In fact, I am one of them. I'm dyslexic, so I get help on the exams, etc. I look at it now, I think I would, if I went through it again from the beginning, I would probably struggle with some of the stuff, because some of the stuff, in my opinion, is useless and nonsense, but that's just an opinion. But I think the apprentices that are going to go for it, they need to realise that you're coming into an industry where you do need to be educated, and you do need to put the hours in, and you definitely do need to turn up to college. So you need someone who fits that demographic. Now, if you're taking on somebody that's qualified, I would say if the average in the area is 30 grand, 32 grand, 42 grand, whatever it is, I would say try to pay the best amount of money you can to attract the best team member, depending on where you are at the stages. Because if you get one replication of you, and that one replication can do 70% of what you can do, you cracked it. So it's as simple as that. So there's two things there. Lots of questions on interview, and the other questions that you need to be asking the engineer is how many boilers you've fitted, how many services you've done, who have you worked for in the past, how many can you do in a day, what do you expect to be done in a day. Because if somebody's done servicing and they've been doing like 2 or 3 services a week, they're not going to be able to go out and do 6 to 10 a day, are they? Because the speed won't be there. So stuff like that's very, very important, in my opinion. You just need to ask questions. How many boilers you've done? Have you done any plumbing? Because it depends on what you want. If you want an installer, you need to ask how many boilers you've done, who you've worked for, what installs you've done, what you're capable of, can you do wiring, all that sort of related to installation. Breakdown engineer, asking questions about breakdown. How many breakdowns do you do a day? What products you've done? Just ask him a few questions. Have you ever changed a right hand block on a Worcester, which is the return unit, or the left hand floor unit? Have you ever done an expansion vessel? How long does it take you? Worcesters are always slagged off on. We think they're so easy to work on, but that's because we work on them every day. But you just need to ask those questions, because if they can't do that, your expectations of what you can do needs to be replicated in what they can do. Because if you're trying to replace yourself, you need to put someone who can do it. Now, you can train them up. That's a longer process, but that might be down to the budgets and stuff like that. So my advice, anything or anybody you take on, just make sure you ask them the right questions, and also make sure that they're not somebody that's going on the piss every weekend. They're going out clubbing constantly, because they're going to let you down every Monday and every Friday after the Thursday, and every Monday after the Sunday. You're going to get calls, and how do I know all this? Because I've employed lots and lots of people, and some of the apprentices was like that, and it's not fair for me to say they're all the same, but the majority of them that like that are no longer here. The ones that have progressed and moved on have done really, really well, because everyone's got to have a life when you're younger. So there's lots of things you've got to do. It's the same when you're employing office staff as well. Ask them questions, their experience, what they've done, where they've worked, and just show them your systems, your processes, your operations. Just watch the reaction. If they're pulling the face or this, that and the other, that's when you kind of like, well, do I take them on or do I train them? There's lots of things to take into consideration when taking people on. So that would be my advice. Brad, I hope that's enough.
What would you say to anyone who's thinking about getting their own vehicles as a first time, start up on their own plumber?
Yeah, that's a really good question, very good question. So it all depends on what you're trying to portray an image. So depending on what your budget is, so say you've got, I don't know, 10 grand, so, and you've already got your tools, that is, I would probably say buy something like a Transit Custom, you know, the bigger van, even the small wheelbase, but you know, rack that out. You can pick them up on probably like a 13 plate or a 50 plate for about £7,500. Now you've got to be careful because they'll be ULEZ taxed at some point, so there is a bit of a negative there. But that's what I do. I buy a van, I'd sign write it, I'd make sure it were clean, I'd get it serviced every 6 months if it were an older van. There's a reason for that, is because ultimately, in my opinion, you're better off to get them checked every 6 months. Minimum cost as well. So that's what we do with the older vehicles. And I would tell the person the most important thing is keep it clean, because we admittedly, well, it's not me, it's the lads. I have to tell them clean your van, clean your van, clean your van. It's funny because when they get their own van, one of the lads who left my company that subs for us now, it's amazing how clean his van is. So, you know, it's that, isn't it? Tidy van, not like a banger or anything like that. But if you've got to go for something that's a cheaper van, say for instance you've got a budget of £3,000, look around for like something that looks good. You know, that doesn't look, and just, if you can, do it. And if you can't, I completely get it, you've got to start somewhere. But even if you buy something that's not that attractive, just make sure it's clean and you're clean and you're well presented, so it cares and then it stands out to customers. So you could even bring it up. I know my van's a little bit, but I can assure you now, my work, and I've just started out, my presentation, my uniform, and I will have a better van. It's just the minute I'm starting out, because some people will give people chances, and I believe a lot of people will give chances, because you can have the best shiny van in the world and be an absolute shit engineer, can't you? Let's face it. So ultimately, my advice with them is just, you know, try to spend as much money as you can on the vehicle, because without that vehicle you've no business, because that's like your little shop, isn't it, where you drive around in and everybody sees, and you basically, that's going to be your shop, your office, you'll be your bed sometimes as well. But ultimately, yeah, I'd spend as much money as I could on a van, what I had physically, because I see people that'll have 20 grand and they'll spend it in the wrong areas. I think your van and your tools, uniform, presentation is where when you're setting off at the very beginning, is where you need to spend your money. And if you've got anything left over, put that into marketing. It's a hard one, because if you borrowed 20 grand, I think you're going to have to put some of that into marketing, some into van and tools. So say your van were 10 and then you had 5, then you had 5 left over. So for tools might be 5 grand, there might be more. But say you had 5 grand over, that's where I'd start my marketing budget with that money. Because ultimately, if you're borrowing it, you've got to pay it back. So you've got to generate that work. It's all a gamble. Everything, life's a gamble. But I believe, again, if you show up and persistency, you'll get what you want. Hard work pays off.
From now, mate, what's the 10-year plan?
Well, I would say 10-year plan's too much. I would say the maximum plan that everybody should, I mean, it's what I do. I would never look for more than 5 years, because 10 years, there's a lot of change happening and I can't really predict. In fact, you can't even predict 5, can you? So we usually go like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. So 1 year, like we've already said, get more vans on the road and look at expanding the office, etc. 2 years, continuing that journey depending on where the market is and the demand, and if it is possible to grow. I believe anything's possible to grow, but it's what you're willing to put into it. Year 3, if we conquered it all, it'd be great to say we had 15, 20 vans on the road, we had a team in the office, we had sales team. We have got sales, I'm still heavily involved in the sales, but it'd be great if I wasn't involved in it and I could just overlook it all and just, you know, do more stuff on the business, because I believe now I'm at the stage where I am an entrepreneur. I have got other businesses, and I think my time is better being the creator in the business rather than being one of the people involved in the business, because being a creator comes later, I think, and I've started to realise I need to create more things and attract more people to the business. That includes customers, it includes team members, potential people that they can get the best out of themselves and I can get the best out of them. Potentially they stay with me forever, basically. That'd be great if I could say that. So I don't have a 10-year plan, but I certainly have 1, 2 and 3. So my goal would be, you know, what I've explained, if I could completely come away from the business and just be like a chairman, if you will, or something what just advises the company and comes in. Now I'm a long way away from that, so 3 years might be a bit ambitious, but it'd be nice where we was doing about £3 to £5 million turnover, making a profit, and we had the team in place, and I could just advise on that, because, you know, once you start getting to those sort of figures, there's other things you can do, but you can't do everything. But what you can do is be a creator and get people to do it for you. And my mentor told me the best way for you to move forward is surround yourself with people a lot better than you, and that's what I've been doing. And, you know, even if I get one golden nugget out of some of the stuff I've done, just one, and I can use that, it's been worth it. because I've been to somewhere, I've not got anything from it, but in the room, a lot of people have got other things out of it. You know, you've got to think, to get these businesses up and running, like, in the success there's clues, isn't there? So my mentor said that to me, success leaves clues, and failure is also good, because that then makes you not fail. There's lots of different, you know, things you can look at, and I think the main thing I'm looking at now is 1, 2 and 3 year, not up to even 5 year. It'd be nice, but I think you've got to concentrate on yearly, monthly, every 3 months, meetings, everything. It's all part of it, because we're all learning. And you know what? Some of the podcasts I listen to and some of the books that I've been listening to on Audible, it all goes down to the creator and the team. And I suppose one of the best tips I got told was, you know, like Man City, United, Liverpool, they don't have mediocre players. They have the best players, and that allows them to be the best team. If you've got mediocre players, then you're going to stay mediocre. But you do need mediocre players as well, because sometimes you just need people in the business that are just happy turning into work and do it. Because not everybody's going to be, you know, like, oh, I want make more money, I want this. Some people just want an easy life. Now that's great, that's fine, but you definitely do need a team around you that's high potential thinkers and earners, because they will push you forward.
So we're going to pick up the truck now. Well, one of the trucks. Is that signed up?
No, if you remember with that particular truck, it's grey, it's matte grey. Now, anybody out there thinking it's a great idea to buy a matte grey truck, think again, any matte colour. So I bought this Amarok. It's had 2 bumps on it, non-fault. So the first bump happened about 2 years ago when I was on the way back from Peterborough, and basically it cost about £14,000 to fix it, and it was a bumper, because you can't key it in, you have to spray the whole truck. So it's had a complete respray from a VW approved garage. They did it, it was perfect, and then about a year or 2 later it's reacting, so now it's had to go back to them for another paint job. But the process is not like any other I've ever been through, because they was telling me that if you paint that truck and there's any blemish in it, you can't polish them out because it's matte grey. So ultimately it's not great for these guys. They've been fantastic, by the way. So that Amarok I've got, it's a beautiful truck, it's an eye turner. But the sign writing, you asked, I sign writ it all, took it straight down to these guys. They went, get this sign writing off here, Mick. I'm like, why? Because it'll react, because when the sunshine hits it, it'll dye the rest of the vehicle, it'll fade, and when you take your stickers off, you'll have an imprint like you do on every van. Difference is with a polish van, you just polish it. You know, like a shiny van or a shiny car, you just polish it. You cannot polish matte, so you can't put anything on it, and nobody tells you that. So the sign writers, I've rung them up and said, do you know what? They're like, oh my God, they now know not to do it. So basically, that's the repair garage where this VW, where the truck is. We've all, pretty much every month, I bet we've got something happening with a vehicle. If it's just like a blemish or a bump, or because I've got some of my vehicles are old, and I was taught from a guy who had a window company around here, very big window company around here, that you're better off to buy your vans and just run them into the ground, but keep them neat, because the amount of money that we lose on vans is absolutely shocking. So I went up with that, because it's not just buying a van, it's putting the racking on. Putting the racking in it, the roof rack, if you put a wrap in it, or you sign write it, whatever you do. So there's all those hidden costs that you're doing. To believe it or not, a shiny van only lasts for 3 years maximum. So you put your design in, it's great. It soon becomes all that. So I've decided to just keep the brand where it is, keep the vans, and just generically do it. If I was to get rid of all the vans and do it now, it'd probably cost me £3,000 down deposit. I was going to lease it, maybe £600 a month. That's a lot of income to generate. So I've always bought them outright. Now, for the first time ever, I've literally done a purchase lease. Is it a purchase lease, or with a balloon payment? Is that what they call it? With a vehicle. Yes. And that'll work out for me. I'm old school, me, and it's hard for my brain to not own anything. And I know that people disagree with me, because you need cash flow in companies like this. So cash flow is dead important, as I totally agree with. But I've just got something in me that at least if I own them, I don't have to worry. Like, for instance, if it's the summer, I've no overheads, no costs. And some of the vans I've got, the 2 oldest ones, the 2 caddies, they're about 8-10 years old. I don't know what they are, but they're still in good nick. They are being replaced pretty soon. But ultimately I'll go again and I'll keep them again. So some companies replace the vans every 3 years. It just depends on how you run it. But it is important because you've got to keep them looking neat. So what we do to hide it, we just put private plates on them all. So every van we've got, or vehicle we own, has got MR gas on it. So it's MR15 gas or 5 gas. It all starts with MR. We've got H2O on one of the plates. So basically everything's private plated, and we've got because I wouldn't mind taking on, I've said this for a long time, a female engineer, qualified female engineer. Reach out to us if you're interested, because I've got a plate for you and it says MR52 gas, which actually spells out Mrs. Gas. So I think that'd be really cool. We've got that, and that's on retention. So that's how we do it. Some companies will do it differently, and I respect everyone's way. You do whatever works best for you.
You've also got a very lovely Defender, so I believe.
Yeah, I have. So that's the one I'm talking about when I put the deposit down, and the first time I never bought it outright. To be honest with you, that was a lot of money, so that'd be a lot of money to purchase outright anyway, and that again would affect cash flow. But I got that for my own car. But the thing is, I've started to use it for work. So because it's so nice to drive, it's got everything on it, and we're toying with the idea, do we sign right just the back wheel of it, just sign right that bit with a removable cover. We can put it on when we want, take it off when we want. But you've got to be careful, because if you go out to price a job, let's say on an estate or somewhere where that's someone's dream car, because believe it or not, it was my dream car. Why did I say believe it or not then? It was my dream car. So basically, I've got my dream car. My other dream car I can't afford just yet. But ultimately, if you turn up and it's theirs, they probably think, oh, how much money is he making? He's got enough money, I'm not using him, so that's why I use the truck. Now, if I'm going for a commercial contract or a bigger job, which is like a university or something, I can turn up in that, because it's expected for people to go for contracts like that, and they don't bat an eyelid because they see it as success. So we are definitely 100%, because we have a price match promise in Wigan, Bolton, Manchester area, Northwest, that will knock off 100 quid off any of our competitors' price if it's the same. Now, if it's 50 quid cheaper or something like that, we'll do that. But what I'm saying is, considerable difference in price, I can usually spot it, because I know the market, I monitor the prices all the time, and I know exactly what everybody's making, because I know what all kickbacks and where we're going with it. So I know there's 2 reasons that they'll be getting it cheaper, is because they're paying cash and they're not paying any tax. Now, you get customers like that. I don't really particularly want them type of customers, because they're not something that I'm interested in. I want to work for a customer, retain that customer, and pay my taxes, basically. But ultimately, that's where I stand on that. So yeah, the Defender that I love to bits, will I bring it into the fleet? We'll see.